They came for our healers. They thought we were weak. 12 worlds burned, hospital ships torn apart in orbit, the screams of the dying carried across the stars. The Corlithic Dominion, the self-proclaimed warlords of the void, thought they had struck a blow that humanity could never recover from. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Because the healer corps was not unprotected. Because for every doctor, surgeon, and medic they slaughtered, Earth had a response waiting. A response called the angels of death. And when the angels descend, there is nothing left to save. The distress beacon pulsed across the void. Faint, fragmented, almost drowned in static, but the message was clear. This is Healer Corps Central, under attack, repeat, under attack. Dominion forces, killing the wounded, no survivors, tell Earth. Static. Fleet Command received it in silence. Every officer, every technician, every diplomat who heard those final words froze. Not because they didn't expect this, but because they knew what would come next. A cold voice cut through the tension. Activate Protocol Revenant. The words fell like a guillotine. No questions. No hesitation. The order was given. Kale Valek stood in the dark, listening to the final moments of the massacre. His augmented fingers flexed, the ghosts of long-healed wounds twitching under his synthetic nerves. He heard the panicked cries of doctors, humans who once put him back together when he was nothing but a shattered corpse. Now they were ash. A familiar voice crackled through his neural link. We have orders, Revenant. He already knew. The moment the distress call cut off, the outcome had been decided. Not by Earth's politicians, not by its diplomats, not even by its military command. This decision had been sealed the day humanity's healers saved their first alien life. Kale didn't respond immediately. He lifted his sidearm, a sleek, nanoforged executioner pistol, and inspected it. A useless habit. It was already perfect. Every shot a death sentence. He holstered it. Who's first? The reply was immediate. Maltrag. The Butcher of Acaris. Warlord of the Corlithic Dominion, the one who personally gave the order to cleanse the Healer Corps from existence. A slow, razor-edged grin spread across Kale's face. We begin. Maltrag feasted. His throne room, if it could even be called that, was a cathedral of slaughter. Bone chandeliers, tables carved from the exoskeletons of his enemies, a floor polished with the dried blood of 1,000 conquered worlds. He laughed, his gnarled claws tearing the flesh from a roasted carcass. The humans are silent. His deep, guttural voice rumbled through the chamber. Their healers begged for mercy. It was pathetic. His generals chuckled, gnashing their fangs, clicking mandibles in agreement. A species of nurses. Unworthy of war. Then the lights flickered. A strange hush fell over the hall. The glowing plasma sconces dimmed, the shadows stretching unnaturally. A heavy, metallic thud echoed from the far side of the room. Then another. And another. Footsteps. Deliberate. Measured. Maltrag frowned, snarling as he turned his head. The chamber doors were sealed. The guards were in position. But something was wrong. The air felt heavy. Then, the gravity plating shattered. Suddenly, the weight of the room vanished. Everything lifted. Goblets, weapons, tapestries, bodies. The warlords, mid-sentence, were flung into the air, weightless, helpless. They thrashed, their roars of laughter turning into screams. And through it all, Kale Valek walked forward. He alone moved with purpose, his gravity boots keeping him grounded. His black combat suit reflected no light, his visor gleaming like an abyss. His voice, cold and sharp, cut through their panic. Maltrag. The butcher twisted in the air, clawing at nothing, his bloated body drifting helplessly. Who? Kale extended his arm. The nanoforged pistol snapped into his grip. Boom. A single shot rang out. The Dominion warlord beside Maltrag jerked violently, his skull blooming open in a burst of blue-black ichor. The corpse drifted lazily toward the ceiling, its mouth still frozen in a scream. Kale's voice was calm. Deadly? You slaughtered my doctors. Another shot. Another body snapped backward, tumbling weightless through the air. You burned my healers. A third shot. A Dominion captain spun into the darkness, a hole where his throat used to be. And you thought no one would come? Maltrag roared in fury, his voice shaking the air. He reached for his plasma blaster. Kale was already there. In a blink, he was in front of Maltrag, his pistol holstered, his hand wrapped around the warlord's throat. A vicious twist, and the two of them slammed back onto the floor as Kale reactivated the gravity plating. Maltrag gagged, coughing, his hulking body collapsing under its own weight. Kale crouched beside him, voice low, venomous. You made a mistake. Maltrag's eyes burned with rage. We are the Dominion. You are just. Kale pressed the blade to his throat. You think we're weak? His voice was pure ice. Let me remind you what my kind does when you take something from us. The warlord choked. His claws twitched, but he could not move. Kale activated his neural uplink. The room's massive holographic display flickered to life. Maltrag's own fleet, his battleships, his warworlds, his command stations, lit up on screen. Each one began exploding. One by one. From the inside out. Kale leaned in. We've already been there. Maltrag's eyes widened in horror. His entire military empire was vanishing before his very eyes. Wait, he gasped, voice shaking. Please, we can negotiate. Kale smiled. No. We don't negotiate. A final pull of the trigger. Maltrag's skull snapped back, his body collapsing in a heap. Silence. Kale rose, stepping over the corpse. He activated his calm. One down. Who's next? A pause. Then, Vorthrax. Kale nodded. We begin again. The feed cut to black. And across the galaxy, the Corlithic Dominion began to tremble. The war machine of the Corlithic Dominion was an unbreakable force, a vast empire of conquest spanning hundreds of worlds. But in the span of a single night, the cracks began to show. Warlords whispered of the ghosts in the dark, of entire fleets going silent, of leaders found dead in their own fortresses. The Dominion did not yet understand what had come for them. Vorthrax, the Crimson General, had spent decades bathing in war, orchestrating the slaughter of countless civilizations. He had led the assault on Healer Outpost 47, where human medics had been dragged into the streets and torn apart for sport. He had watched their fragile bodies crumple under Dominion boots, had laughed as their screams echoed into the void. Now Vorthrax stood in his command center aboard the Wraithborn, the flagship of the Dominion's Third Fleet. A behemoth of war, armed with enough firepower to glass a planet in minutes. Its defenses were impenetrable. No army could breach its hull. No assassin could reach him. His crimson battle armor gleamed under the dim lighting of the war room. Clawed hands curled into fists as he watched the reports flood in. More silence. More missing fleets. More leaders turning up dead. The Dominion was at war, but not with a nation. Not with a fleet. Not with anything they understood. Something else had come for them. A flicker in the holographic display. The lights in the command room flickered, just once, so quickly it could have been dismissed. A low hum vibrated through the ship's core. The Dominion officers around Vorthrax stiffened, their instincts honed by years of battle. Something was wrong. A deep voice, calm, measured, inhumanly precise, echoed through the chamber. Vorthrax. Every Dominion officer froze. Vorthrax's burning yellow eyes snapped to the room's entrance. The door had not opened. The security scanners detected nothing. But there he stood. A figure clad in matte black, a visor gleaming like an abyss, a presence that did not belong in this world. No alarm had sounded. No breach had been detected. And yet he was here. Vorthrax did not hesitate. His plasma rifle snapped up, a warrior's reflex honed through centuries of battle. He pulled the trigger. A blast of crimson energy lit up the chamber, scorching through the air like a star collapsing in on itself. The figure moved. Too fast. Before the rifle had even completed its cycle, Kale Valak was already gone. A blur of motion, a shadow that defied the laws of combat. The next sound Vorthrax heard was the sickening crunch of two Dominion officers collapsing, their necks twisted at unnatural angles. Vorthrax roared. "Kill him!" The room erupted into chaos. Dominion soldiers opened fire, plasma rounds searing through the air. But they were firing at nothing. Kale was everywhere. Nowhere. A flash of steel. A blade cut through the air, its nanoforged edge so sharp it barely registered before the first officer's head dropped to the floor. The second officer staggered, gurgling, as Kale's hand plunged into his chest cavity and ripped his synthetic heart free. Vorthrax charged. The warlord was a titan, a walking juggernaut of muscle, cybernetic augments, and centuries of unbroken combat. He swung his massive war axe, a weapon that had severed the spines of kings and emperors alike. Kale caught the handle with one hand. Vorthrax's mind barely had time to register the impossible before Kale twisted. The axe snapped like brittle glass, its reinforced alloy crumbling under an inhuman strength. Vorthrax lunged with razor-sharp claws, but Kale was inside his defenses before he even knew he'd moved. A fist struck his ribs. The shockwave shattered his armor. His knees buckled. His lungs spasmed. Vorthrax collapsed to the floor, gasping, his entire chest cavity struggling to function. One punch. That was all it had taken. Kale crouched beside him. "You killed my doctors!" Vorthrax's mandibles clicked as he tried to force words through broken lungs. His mind reeled. He had fought thousands of warriors. He had crushed entire fleets. He had never known fear. Until now. Kale grabbed the back of Vorthrax's skull and slammed it into the floor. Hard. The reinforced alloy beneath cracked. Kale leaned closer. His voice was calm, deathly cold. "You butchered the innocent. Slaughtered the unarmed. Laughed as the helpless begged for mercy." Vorthrax's vision blurred. He felt something trickle from his mouth. Blood. His own. Kale tilted his head. "Tell me, Crimson General. Where is your army now?" Vorthrax's mind screamed as he felt something drip onto his face. He turned his head, his barely functioning eyes locking onto the holographic display. It showed his fleet. Or rather, what remained of it. Ships, thousands of them, were detonating one by one. Sabotaged from within. Explosions rippled through space in perfect, calculated sequences. Not a battle. An execution. Kale spoke again, his voice lowering to a whisper. "We've already been there." The Crimson General realized, far too late, that he was already dead. He coughed, his body refusing to function, his mind spiraling into panic. "Please, mercy." Kale's voice was steel. "You didn't show mercy to my doctors." Vorthrax felt something cold press against his skull. The last sound he ever heard was the click of a trigger. Then, silence. Kale rose, wiping the blood from his gloved hand. His visor reflected the carnage, the once mighty Crimson General's body now just another forgotten corpse. His comms crackled. "Vorthrax is down." A pause. Then, "The Shadow Chancellor is next." Kale turned, stepping over the dead. "On my way." As he left, the Wraithborn continued to burn, another testament to humanity's vengeance. The Angels of Death were far from finished. The Galactic Council had convened in secret. Behind closed doors, inside the impenetrable Dyson sphere of Sanctuary Prime, the most powerful rulers of the galaxy gathered in whispered fear. Holographic displays flickered with images of burning warships, silent fleets, and dead warlords. The Corlithic Dominion was disintegrating. Their once mighty rulers, Maltrag, Vorthrax, and a dozen more, erased in a matter of days. No declaration of war. No fleets. No warnings. Just death. High Chancellor Zyron of the Zywyankar Confederacy pressed his clawed fingers together. His 3 hearts pounded in his chest, the pressure of the situation threatening to send his cold blood into a boil. This cannot be possible. Ambassador Raylick of the Uxury Republic, his thin, silvered tendrils trembling, spoke in a voice that barely contained his terror. They were supposed to be weak. The silence in the chamber was suffocating. No one dared state the obvious. The humans had changed. One of the counselors leaned forward, their many eyes narrowing in suspicion. The Dominion was the most ruthless force in the known universe. If they are falling this quickly, then we must assume the humans have weaponized something we do not understand. A dark muttering spread through the council. The fear of the unknown was more terrifying than any fleet. They had believed humanity was a species of medics and diplomats, beings who repaired what war destroyed. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. Humanity had not sent soldiers to fight this war. They had sent something else. Chancellor Zyron exhaled sharply. There must be a countermeasure. The lights flickered. The counselors froze. Zyron's 3 hearts skipped a beat. The air itself felt heavier, as if the very station was inhaling, preparing for something unspoken. Ambassador Raylick's tendrils twitched violently. Security, confirm status. The main doors slammed shut. Every security system on Sanctuary Prime was state-of-the-art. The most fortified station in the galaxy, an impenetrable fortress designed to keep out entire armies. Yet someone was already inside. A voice, low, cold, inhumanly precise, echoed through the chamber. You sanctioned the massacre of our healers. The air crackled with static. Shadows moved where no shadows should be. You thought there would be no consequences. Chancellor Zyron rose to his feet, his scaled fingers shaking as he reached for the emergency beacon embedded in the arm of his chair. He pressed it. Nothing. The systems were dead. The voice came again, this time from everywhere and nowhere. You were wrong. A figure stepped forward. Black armor, matte and seamless, absorbing the dim glow of the council chamber's lighting. The visor reflected nothing. He moved with lethal purpose, his presence a void that sent shivers through even the most hardened warlords. High Chancellor Zyron recognized him instantly. Revenant. The name sent a chill through the room. The whispers had reached even the deepest corridors of power. The deathless ghost of humanity, the one who did not lead armies, who did not command fleets, but instead erased those who stood against Earth. Kale Valek was here. Ambassador Raylick recoiled, his voice a rasped whisper. This is impossible. Kale moved forward. Every step sounded like a hammer striking a coffin lid. He did not raise a weapon. He did not need to. They were already dead. Zyron forced strength into his voice. Human! If you do this, you will doom your kind. The Galactic Council. Kale's tone was cold. The Galactic Council sanctioned the deaths of my people. Now I am here to collect the debt. Raylick's tendrils twitched wildly, his body writhing in panic. It was a precaution. You, your species, were becoming too powerful. We had to act. Kale stopped in front of the ambassador. His voice did not change. And now you will die. Raylick lunged, his elongated limbs lashing out, razor-sharp appendages aiming for Kale's throat. Kale caught them midair. A brief, twisting motion. Raylick's body convulsed violently. The sickening snap of cartilage and bone breaking echoed through the chamber. His body crumpled. Silence. Kale turned to Zyron. The time of your rule is over. The High Chancellor straightened, his yellow eyes narrowing. You think killing us will change anything? The Council is an idea, human. We are eternal. Kale nodded. Then let me show you how eternal you really are. A single motion. The knife flashed. Zyron choked, clawing at his throat as a thin line of blood spread across his scales. His body swayed before crumbling into a lifeless heap. Kale turned his gaze to the remaining counselors. No words were spoken. They understood. Their time was over. One by one, they were erased, executed with precision. The once mighty rulers of the galaxy, now nothing more than footnotes in history. The Galactic Council was no more. Kale activated his neural link. It's done! A voice crackled through his earpiece. Acknowledged. Orders? Kale surveyed the bodies, his expression unreadable beneath his visor. Burn it! Explosions erupted across Sanctuary Prime. Fire spread like a living creature, devouring corridors, consuming data banks, erasing every trace of the old order. Kale strode through the inferno, the last remnants of the council crumbling to ash behind him. There would be no negotiations. No surrender. No survivors. As he stepped into the darkness, the void seemed to whisper the truth that the galaxy now understood. The humans had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. The Dominion's final bastion was a world of steel and blood, a planet-sized fortress designed for war. It was here that Overlord Tarshex, the architect of the Healer Corps' extermination, made his stand. The command structure of the Dominion was collapsing, fleets abandoned, generals executed, warlords in hiding. The angels of death had come, and now only the Overlord remained. Tarshex stood in his throne room, watching the live feeds of his empire crumbling. One by one, his warlords had died screaming, their fortresses turned into tombs. The humans did not wage war. They ended it. His forearms clenched into fists, mandibles clicking in frustration. He had underestimated them. A transmission interrupted the silence. The security AI's voice was strained, almost afraid. Overlord, intruder detected. Tarshex hissed. Show me. The screen flickered. A dark figure moved through the citadel, past armed sentries who did not even realize they were already dead. He walked with terrifying calm, his black armor absorbing the dim light, a wraith in the corridors of war. Kale Valek had arrived. Tarshex inhaled sharply, his twin hearts pounding. All units! Kill him! The transmission cut. Silence. Then, the gunfire started. Explosions rippled through the citadel as the Dominion's elite warriors engaged. Plasma fire scorched the hallways, soldiers shouting as they fought to contain something they could not see. The battle lasted seconds. Then static. Tarshex took a step back from the screen. His warriors were dead. The doors to the throne room slammed shut. The lights flickered. Then, a voice, low and calm, cut through the darkness. Tarshex! The Overlord's breath hitched. Slowly, he turned. Kale stood in the center of the chamber, alone. Unarmed. Tarshex's fingers twitched toward the command console. Kale tilted his head. Trying to call for help? Tarshex slammed his fist against the control panel. Nothing. The system was dead. Kale took a slow step forward. You killed my people. Tarshex straightened, forcing his fear down, glaring. Your people were weak. Kale's visor reflected nothing. That's what Maltrag thought. And Vorthrax. And the Council. Tell me, how did that work out for them? Tarshex bared his fangs. I am not them. Kale nodded. You're right. His voice dropped into something quieter. You're worse. Tarshex roared, his massive form surging forward. Forearms swung with brutal force, claws flashing through the air, his sheer power enough to tear through starship hulls. Kale moved. He was a blur, faster than thought, slipping through the Overlord's strikes without effort. A twist, a pivot, a single step to the side, and suddenly, Kale was behind him. A strike landed on Tarshex's spine. The Overlord staggered, something inside him cracking. He spun, roaring in fury, swinging again. Kale caught his wrist mid-swing. His grip tightened. Tarshex's bones snapped. A scream tore from his throat, but Kale was already moving again. A second strike to the ribs sent the Overlord crashing against the throne, gasping, his vision swimming. Kale walked toward him, slow, measured. You ordered the purge of my people. You murdered the ones who saved me. Tarshex panted, his body refusing to obey him. We were protecting ourselves. Kale crouched beside him. From what? Tarshex's mandibles trembled. From what you are now. Kale was silent. Then, he leaned in. That was your mistake. Tarshex snarled. You think killing me will change anything? The Dominion is eternal. I am only one ruler. Kale exhaled softly, standing. No. You were the last. Tarshek's stomach twisted in fear. Lies. Kale tapped his wrist console. The holographic display flickered, revealing live feeds from across the Dominion. His entire war machine, his fleets, his armies, his ruling class, gone. Tarshek's breath shook. His entire species' rule, erased in days. Kale turned to face him one last time. Your empire is already dead. Now it's your turn. Tarshek lunged in a final, desperate attack. Kale shot him through the skull. The Overlord collapsed, lifeless. Kale stood over the corpse. He activated his calm. Tarshek is down. The Dominion is finished. The voice on the other end was calm. Acknowledged. Orders? Kale's visor reflected the burning wreckage outside. Burn it all. Explosions tore through the fortress. Kale walked away without looking back. The war was over. But the message had just begun. The last remnants of the Corlithic Dominion burned across the void, silent graveyards where once proud warships had become nothing more than drifting wreckage. The great empire, once feared across the galaxy, had been reduced to a whisper in the darkness. What few warlords remained had scattered, their forces shattered, their command structure decimated. There was no surrender. There were no peace talks. There was only silence. Kale Valek stood aboard the Oblivion, his personal stealth cruiser, watching the destruction unfold. His mission was complete. The Dominion was finished. But he felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. There was no victory when the war was never meant to be fought in the first place. A voice cut through his earpiece. Revenant, are we clear? He let the silence hang for a moment before responding. Almost. There was still one thing left to do. A single ship remained, a Dominion battlecruiser, the last surviving vessel of the once mighty fleet. A warship without a fleet, a relic of a dead empire, its crew stranded in the wreckage of a war they had already lost. And on its bridge, one final loose end waited. Kale stepped onto the deployment pad. His boots locked into the grav plating as he activated his void suit, the black armor shifting around him like liquid shadow. The battlecruiser was already crippled. Its engines were failing. It had nowhere to run. Perfect. His body vanished into the void. Inside the Dominion warship, Grand Marshal Rethax stood motionless, his forearms braced against the holodable. He had known this moment was coming. His empire had fallen. His fleets were gone. But the humans had not simply won the war. They had erased it. The Dominion had always been a force of conquest, of absolute control, and yet in mere days, it had been unmade, not by an army, not by a grand fleet, but by something far worse. The humans had hunted them down, warlord by warlord, fleet by fleet, until nothing remained. And now, the last predator had come for him. A flicker in the shadows. The room grew cold. Rethax's mandibles clicked together. Show yourself. Nothing. He clenched his jaw. I will not cower like the others. If you are here to kill me, then at least face me. A whisper of sound behind him. He turned. Kale stood in the doorway, motionless, a specter of death in black armor. Rethax stared at him, taking in the human's cold, calculating presence. No anger. No hesitation. Just purpose. He exhaled slowly. We knew you were dangerous. We just never realized how much. Kale didn't move. You knew we were healers. And you thought that made us weak. The Grand Marshal narrowed his yellow eyes. It did. Kale tilted his head slightly. And yet here we are. Rethax stepped forward, hands open, showing no weapons. You don't need to kill me. The Dominion is finished. You've already won. Kale's voice was quiet. You don't understand what this was, do you? Rethax's jaw tightened. Enlighten me. Kale finally moved, stepping forward, his presence towering over the alien commander. This wasn't war. This was balance. Rethax growled, frustration creeping into his voice. Your kind always preaches balance, yet you leave nothing behind but ash. If you wanted revenge, you have it. If you wanted dominance, you've taken it. What more is there? Kale stared at him for a long moment before answering. You still think we fight for power? Rethak narrowed his eyes. And what do you fight for? Kale's voice was cold. Memory. The silence stretched between them. Kale took another step forward, his voice unwavering. You tried to erase my people. To wipe out the ones who saved lives across this galaxy. You didn't kill warriors. You didn't kill soldiers. You killed doctors. Medics. Surgeons. You slaughtered the ones who stood between war and annihilation. Rethak said nothing. Kale leaned closer, his words like steel. You wanted to erase them. So I erased you. The Grand Marshal exhaled slowly. And what now? Do you simply vanish into the dark? Will your leaders allow what you've done? Kale's voice was almost a whisper. They didn't give the order. I did. Rethak's jaw clenched. Then you are no better than us. Kale nodded. Maybe. The Grand Marshal straightened, meeting Kale's visor. Then do it. Kill me. Kale was silent. Seconds passed. Then, in one smooth motion, Kale holstered his weapon. Rethak's brow furrowed. What game are you playing? Kale turned his head slightly, listening to something beyond the room, beyond the ship. You're already dead. Rethak frowned, his mandibles twitching. What? Kale tapped a single button on his gauntlet. The holoscreens in the command center flickered to life, revealing the outside of the ship. And the planet below. Rethak's stomach dropped. The ship wasn't drifting. It was falling. His warriors were already gone. His crew, his guards, all of them erased before he had even realized the battle had begun. His ship was locked on a collision course. Rethak turned sharply, rage twisting through his body. You would kill us like this? Like cowards? Kale's voice was calm. You didn't deserve a fight. Rethak lunged, his fury overtaking him, but Kale was already gone. A shadow in the air, slipping through the breach in reality, as he activated his extraction beacon. The last thing Rethak saw was the glow of the planet's atmosphere engulfing the bridge as the ship plummeted toward oblivion. Kale reappeared aboard the Oblivion, stepping onto the deck without a word. The crew didn't ask what had happened. They didn't need to. The war was over. The final body had fallen. A message came through. The galaxy is waiting for an answer. What do we tell them? Kale stared out into the void. The stars stretched endlessly before him. He exhaled slowly. Nothing. The comms fell silent. The galaxy already knew. The humans had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. And when the time came, they did not conquer. They did not negotiate. They erased. Kale turned away from the stars. The angels of death had done their work. Now they would disappear. And the galaxy would never forget.